peut-être une réponse rapide de Donald à 4 questions. Puis il y aura un autre moment où il y aura d'autres questions et d'autres échanges avec la salle.
Well, that's a lot to talk about. I couldn't write it all down, but there were just some reactions that I quite agree that as land becomes scarce, that many private operators, such as supermarkets and stores, begin to think of parking as a way to make money. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a good idea. I think the city ought to do the same thing. It's only if you think the city has so much money that it doesn't need any more that you think it's a good idea to give it away free, no matter how much it costs. I think it's a great way. Charging drivers for parking is a great way to pay for public services. And in San Francisco, making the link to the lady in the back, San Francisco, all of the additional revenue created by these market charges for parking will go to pay for public transportation. It doesn't, in San Francisco, it won't go to the neighborhoods. It will all go to subsidize public transportation, which is good because San Francisco has the most expensive and inefficient public transportation in the country. I think that when you begin thinking about what the money can be used for, then you see it's a good idea to charge. Say in London, all the money from the congestion charge goes to pay for public transportation. So I don't think it's a bad idea to try to improve traffic flow and parking and use the revenue for something that society really wants. And what they also found in London is that when you began charging drivers for driving into the city center and reducing congestion, it speeded up the buses considerably. I pointed out the statistics on that had been such as they were, that had been developed about what percentage of the traffic is cruising for underpriced curb parking. And I'm sure a lot of it in some parts of Paris is. Well, if you could get those cars off the road, the buses would run a lot faster. So parking policy isn't only about parking, it is intimately connected with everything else in the transportation system. The average car is parked 95% of the time. And if it's going to be free, that greatly reduces the cost of owning a vehicle, and it means that when you want to find a place to park it, you'll have to drive around hunting for it. And this congests traffic, it pollutes the air, it now creates greenhouse gas emissions. I think there are a lot of reasons to think of charging efficient prices for the roads and for parking and using the money to improve public transportation. As I said, in Colorado, they use the parking meter money to provide free public transit passes to everybody who works in the area. And what the United States lacks is public transit riders, not public transportation. We have a lot of empty buses. I think that if you can guarantee riders by offering free transit, that you will get more riders. Say, one of the few sensible policies of transportation to emerge from the United States. I'm not in any way suggesting that the United States is anywhere near as good as Paris and Copenhagen. I mean, it would be ridiculous to think that we have much to teach you. But one of the better policies, I think, is that at most major universities now, the university makes an agreement with the public transportation service, the bus system and the subway system, and your university ID card serves as a free transit pass. The university pays the public transportation system to finance this arrangement. At UCLA, it's about $2 million a year to pay the public transit agencies. But everybody at UCLA, the faculty, the students, the staff, they can ride anywhere they want on public transit just by showing their ID card. And a lot of universities are picking this up. And getting back to your Benoit's question about what are the coalitions, the impetus for this arrangement comes from the students, the green students, that they want the university to do it, and the university has almost always fought it. They didn't want to pay for it. They didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to make this change. But once universities often say the students have to pay for it. They have to have an election and impose the cost on themselves. But when these elections are held, often 90% of the students vote yes. At least the people who vote yes. I think that it's the transit riders who probably vote in these elections, and other people really don't care. So I think that a proper use of the revenue from curb parking or from congestion tolls, either to pay for the installation of VELOB systems in other cities. Every city on earth envies the VELOB system, but how are they going to pay for it? Well, one way to pay for it is that every neighborhood could use the money from charging fair prices for curb parking to subsidize a VELOB system for everybody, including the people who are too poor to own a car. That's the way roads can be for everybody, not offering it free to people who have cars and giving nothing to everybody else, letting them fend for themselves. There were a couple of other questions. Maybe I've gone on too far.
Perhaps after. Can you answer after?
Maybe I've said enough. Thank you very much for your questions.